everyone, and welcome to LA Rams Central. This is the 70th episode, kind of a milestone. We're only 30 away from 100, which I'm pretty excited about. I've got my partner in crime, Eric Lewicki. Go ahead and say hey.
What's going on, everyone?
So it's that time of week again. It's time to do our predictions. Last week I went 8-7. Eric, you had a really good week. I think you were like 11-4. So, congrats on that. But it's a full slate now, and I tend to do better here in the second half of the season. Thanksgiving on seems to be when I gain some ground on you, but I never ever beat you in these picks, as frustrating as that may be. Probably because I don't stick with what I say in the beginning of the year. But I digress. Opening things up, we've got Minnesota. So the Thanksgiving Day games I'm excited about. There's one really good game. There's one that should be very intriguing, and then it's the beginning of a 6-game winning streak for another. So I'm going to start with this one. Minnesota at Detroit. I'm of this ilk. Detroit has owned Minnesota the last 3 times they played. And by own, I mean barely win. I think there's a big emotional high from a win like Minnesota had last week. I think there's a revenge factor playing a part in this. I think the Vikings have found a running game. I think they know that Detroit's a one-man show. And I do think that the Rams' defense is better than the Lions. So I'm going to go with the Vikings over Detroit in an upset. But I don't have a score. But I bet you it's going to be like 3 or less.
Yeah, I don't consider this game Minnesota winning an upset. I consider Detroit winning in Minnesota an upset. I know the Vikings were dealing with the loss of Dalvin Cook and his ACL injury. They really couldn't get on track. They're just trying to figure out their way in that game. As far as where these teams are to this point, I think Minnesota is reaching bounds ahead of Detroit. I think Minnesota is the one defense that Matt Stafford will have a fourth quarter comeback on. That being said, I like all the positions better on Minnesota as far as running back, as far as tight end, as far as wide receiver. I would take Stafford over Keenum any day of the week. But the way Keenum's playing, he has really shown that he's silencing all talk of Teddy Bridgewater coming in and taking his job. Now, this Detroit team does start a 3-game road trip for Minnesota, which is really going to tell us who the Vikings really are. But I think they get off to a 1-0 start on this 3-game road trip, and they beat Detroit by at least a touchdown.
All right. This one I've gone back and forth on. Dallas supposedly is going to have their left tackle back. I don't know if it makes a difference. Dak is an average quarterback at best without Ezekiel Elliott. And I know he wants to prove desperately that he's not. I can't believe I'm saying this. But I'm going to actually go with the Chargers over Dallas on Thanksgiving Day. Talk me out of it.
Actually, I'm not going to talk you out of it because I'm going to take the Chargers as well. I think that the Chargers are actually playing some of their best football right now. And I know Nathan Peterman and his 5 interceptions really helped the Chargers get to 54 points against the Bills last week. But the way Dallas has been playing, you even mentioned it on the show that was posted earlier today, that they've had 16 points in the last 2 games, and that's not a recipe for a win, for any type of wins right there, unless you have the world's greatest defense and you're holding opponents to like 3 or 6 points.
Yeah.
However, I do see Dallas being in this game. I think they're going to be able to run the ball with
Morris.
What's his face?
Morris.
I just had it on the tip of my tongue. Alfred Morris, thank you.
Yep.
They're going to be able to run with him. You're going to see, Witten definitely had a good game against the Chargers. But I definitely think you're going to see a lot of Bosa lined up on the right side to where he is going to go up against Tyron Smith, who is practicing this week, and they expect to be back in the game for this Thursday because he missed the last game or two. So I think you're going to try to see Bosa create a lot of havoc the way Adrian Claiborne did. Um, but I think that the Chargers have a little bit too much more offense. Keenan Allen came through huge last week with 159 yards receiving, and if he's on point, it's going to be a long day for the secondary for Dallas. So give me the Chargers in a close game here.
You think Benjamin has a big game?
You know what? I actually think it's going to be a lot of Hunter Henry, Melvin Gordon, Aaron Eckler, and you're also going to get Keenan Allen with another big game. Benjamin and there's the other wide receiver, Tyrell Williams. You know, they might get a couple of catches each, but I think Rivers is going to be like, you know what? It's Thanksgiving, it's prime time, everybody's mostly done eating their turkey. We don't want them to fall asleep in their lazy boys, so we're going to put on a show against Dallas.
All right, that works. The evening game, the nightcapper. The New York Giants at the Washington Redskins. Now, the Redskins did lose Thompson for the season with a broken fibula. That's a big blow to the Redskins. But P. Ryan had 113 yards rushing against New Orleans. He's starting to get comfortable. I think with how little the Redskins used him in the beginning of the year, I'm not worried about the end of the year fatigue kicking in on him. I actually think P. Ryan is starting to figure out the NFL speed and the game. I think he's going to be an asset to the Redskins running game, and I could see the Redskins winning this game by 2 touchdowns. I got Washington winning handily at home on Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I do too. Jordan Reed is out for this game, so look for a lot of Cousins to Vernon Davis. But you know what, as well, is that Terrell Pryor is on injured reserve. He had ankle scope, so that's going to open up a lot of the field to where he occupied but didn't get any balls thrown his way for Crowder and Doxson. Okay, so Crowder and Doxson could easily have big games. It could be one or the other. It's really hard to say which one, but Doxson's been getting a lot of the passes thrown his way lately. Crowder had a good game. Doxson had a good game last week. But I think that, you know, with the division game, prime time, Thursday night, I think you're going to see the Washington Redskins put at least 40 up on the Giants.
Wow, big game for the Redskins. I'm okay with that. All right, now we jump into the Sunday games. We got Tampa Bay at Atlanta. There's not a lot to say here. I think the Falcons, they're riding high with 2 big wins against teams with winning records. I don't see this being a letdown game because Atlanta knows they got to win pretty much every game from here on out just to have a potential opportunity at the division. This is where Atlanta got hot last year, and we're seeing it again this year. I don't know about Sarkisian figuring out this offense, but I do think the Falcons are starting to figure out Sarkisian. And Tampa Bay is the perfect opponent to draw when you're coming off of a 2-game winning streak and you're trying to make it 3. They're at home in that dome. I think the Falcons are going to use it as a really good tune-up because after this game, the Falcons get Minnesota at home. So this is an opportunity for them to really kind of open up and spread their wings, pun intended, and fly pretty high here. I got Atlanta winning big over Tampa Bay.
Yeah, I see the Falcons. I don't think it's going to be a blowout as you think it might be, only because Fitzpatrick has played really well against, or not against, but the last two games that he's played, and he's gotten the ball to Deshaun Jackson, which they needed to do, and he's gotten the ball to Mike Evans, especially last week because the week before he was injured. But here's where Atlanta is going to win the game. Now, Atlanta's defense isn't the greatest. However, they're going to have time on offense to pass because facing the Tampa Bay defense, they generate pressure at the lowest rate in the NFL so far this season. Wow. So Matt Ryan is going to have all kinds of time to find his boy Julio Jones and to find Mohamed Sanu, who has scored 3 out of the last 4 games. As of right now, Devontae Freeman has yet to be cleared from the concussion protocol, so look for another heavy dose of Tevin Coleman, but also look for Austin Hooper to be a little bit more involved than he was last week against the Seattle Seahawks. So I think that Tampa Bay keeps it close, but Atlanta wins this pretty easily. I think they pull away in the fourth quarter and win by about 10 to 13 points.
Well, they actually pull away in the fourth quarter instead of it tightening up in the fourth quarter. I like Ward too.
Right, exactly.
I think Ward is a really good running back. He showed some pretty good stuff against Seattle. So,
Yeah, he runs the ball low to the ground. He's hard to tackle, and he's got such wide and broad shoulders that you can't wrap him up high. So obviously, where people are going to try to tackle him is low. But once you start getting tired from tackling Terry Ward, here comes Tevin Coleman. He's going to run right past.
Well, and that's the problem with Ward is he's a bowling ball with legs, and he just bowls over people. It's fun to watch. I hope he has another really good game. Cleveland at Cincinnati. The Browns don't get a win here. Cincinnati's going to start pulling into the playoff picture. I can't believe I'm saying that. With a victory over Cleveland. I'm not looking at the Bengals' schedule the rest of the way. I'm looking at this game and I'm saying, what are they, 4-6 right now? Right?
Right.
So they get this win. They go to 5-6. They're tied with San Diego. If the Chargers do what we think they're going to do on Thanksgiving Day, I just don't think Cincinnati's going to allow themselves to sleep on Cleveland because, like Atlanta, they're in a position now where they just have to do what they have to do. And what they have to do is win. And you got to beat these teams. And they destroyed Cleveland earlier in the year. I don't see it being any different this week. I got the Bengals winning big. Again, when I say big, I mean like 24 points.
Yeah, I like the Bengals big in this game as well. The Bengals were 2 weeks new into their offensive coordinator after they fired Zampese. And, Dalton threw 4 touchdown passes. So I expect more of the same for Dalton on there. Their new offensive coordinator, Bill Lazor, when he took over after week 2, I see a lot more of that going against Cleveland. Cleveland has a decent defense, but it's their offense that really gets them into trouble. So I don't really see Deshaun Kaiser moving the ball up and down the field against Cincinnati, but you'll see Dalton throw the ball at will against Cleveland. Cleveland might actually be tough the following week because they get Josh Gordon back, but he's not going to help him this week because he's not eligible to play. I'll be interested to see how that goes, and we'll definitely preview that next week. But they're starting to get some guys, and they got Corey Coleman back. But I think the Bengals have a little too much on offense for the Browns to pull this one off.
Yeah, I agree. Tennessee at Indianapolis. By the way, Eric, I didn't edit any of the other video, so we tried to get it in 45 and it didn't happen, but that's okay. Tennessee at Indianapolis. I actually expect this game to be really close. I wouldn't be surprised if Tennessee won this thing like 17-14 in overtime. I'm picking Tennessee to win because I think the running game is going to be a little bit too much, but the Colts are scrappy. You're not going to blow them out very often anymore. You might have been able to get away with that in the beginning of the year, but I'll give credit where credit's due. They're fighting hard for Chuck Pagano, which, oh, by the way, I have to say this. I'm watching the NFL morning show, or Good Morning, whatever it is, Good Morning Football, and they're talking to this guy, and he talks about the defensive coordinator for I'm not kidding you, he said this. The defensive coordinator for the Raiders getting fired. And he said that the former linebacker that was fired for the Raiders was Ray Lewis. And then proceeded to say that he was replaced by Chuck Pagano. It was Ken Norton Jr. that was fired, and he was replaced by John Pagano. So it's like, good job, NFL. You really got guys that know their stuff. I just thought that was funny. But Chuck Pagano, who's the actual head coach of the Colts, these guys are fighting hard for him. So I think the Titans will win, but I think it'll be close.
Yeah, give me the Titans in this game. As far as the Colts go, Jacoby Brissett is still technically, and I put technically in quotation marks, and you can see me doing the little quotation marks in the air as well. He's still technically in the concussion protocol, but he's practiced in full today, so he should be cleared either Thursday or Friday to start the game. I mean, if he isn't cleared for some reason, it's going to be a huge Tennessee blowout with Scott Tolzien at quarterback. But I think Brissett will play. I think you'll see it close for about a half, but Tennessee is so electric on offense, whether it's Murray or Henry running the ball, that Mariota can hit so many guys in the pocket and then run himself. I see Mariota as as a Russell Wilson light at this stage in his career. Um, but I like the Tennessee Titans quite a bit in this game. I think they make a statement. They are one game in back of Jacksonville, so expect them to keep applying the pressure to Jacksonville.
Yeah. Buffalo at Kansas City. The Bills are a dumpster fire. Kansas City's 1-4, as we've discussed in the last 5 games. But the Bills are starting Tyrod, then they're not starting Tyrod, then they're starting Tyrod, then they're not starting Tyrod. And correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't it the Chiefs that just signed Dwight Freeney?
No, actually, that was the Lions.
The Lions, that's right. The Lions on Thanksgiving Day. But either way, I think the Chiefs can get pressure on Tyrod. I think their corners are better than the Bills' wide receivers. I got Kansas City winning this game at home. Arrowhead's a tough place to play. If they can beat Philly there, they can beat Buffalo there, is my thinking.
The Chiefs just signed Darrell Revis.
That's what it was. That's what it was.
Yeah, that's what it was. Buffalo is starting to play musical quarterback chairs. Sean McDermott may as well just came up to the podium on his post-game press conference last Sunday and said, you know what, media folks, I completely effed up on the quarterback situation. That's on me. Yeah, he should have started Tyrod Taylor all along. I didn't know what he did against New Orleans, but they were getting blown out from the start. So, that's not on Tyrod. As far as Peterman coming in throwing 5 interceptions, we're not going to see that again the next week because he's back to his number 2 spot. And like I said, it's quarterback musical chairs. That's not a recipe for success. That's not when you're at the time 5-4 in the 6th spot in a playoff race that you haven't been to the playoffs in 19 years. So Buffalo, they're righting the ship by putting back Tyrod Taylor. They can get a wild card spot, but they're losing at Kansas City. Kansas City's going to get back on the winning track here.
Yeah, I agree with that. So far, I don't think we've disagreed on a single picky. Miami at New England. Patriots. Once again, New England just gets the benefit of playing garbage teams. The AFC least, otherwise known as the AFC East, is yet to put up a professional football team in the last 20 years. So, once again, they get the University of Miami coming in, a college team, not a pro team, and the Patriots should put up 40 points and win no problem.
They didn't just go to the AFC Championship game during the Brady era.
Are you kidding me? Butt fumble.
No, I'm serious, they did.
Butt fumble was their quarterback.
5 years to the day. Hey, he got to the AFC Championship game, and that might have been 2008 when Brady was injured with a torn ACL. I'd have to go back and look. I don't remember off the top of my head. But again, Miami is semi-playing quarterback musical chairs. Jay Cutler is still in the concussion protocol. He has yet to be cleared. So it's either Cutler or Matt Moore, but either way, it doesn't matter. The Dolphins have a semi-shot with Matt Moore at quarterback because I don't think that the Patriots have anyone to cover Kenny Stills, who's gone off the last few games. He had a big 65-yard touchdown reception last week in the second half in the Dolphin game, but I had too much New England in this game, and I want to give a shout out to the Patriots, their fan base. They lost Terry Glenn in a car accident.
Yeah.
He was a wide receiver that I don't know if many of you remember, but he played for the Patriots and Cowboys. I'm not sure if he played for anybody else, but those are the 2 teams I remember him playing for. Terry Glenn gone a little too soon at age 43. I just remember him, I believe it was, if I'm not mistaken, it was their Super Bowl against
the Packers.
The Packers,
yep.
Yeah. That he was actually getting a lot of balls thrown his way by Drew Bledsoe, and I remember he was around for quite a while. But I just want to give a shout out to the Patriots fan base and let y'all know that Terry Glenn gone too soon.
Yeah, I agree with that. I remember, of course, back then I was a Patriot fan. That was my other team. Growing up in Maine, that's who I followed: the Rams and Patriots, and then Redskins, and then Browns. Now it's just those 3, the Rams, Redskins, and Browns. But I remember watching him play. He had a really great game blocking against the Steelers in the playoff game in the fog. Um, and then the next week against Jacksonville, he made a couple of key catches to get him help get them to the Super Bowl. And then, like you said, the Super Bowl he kind of went off a little bit, but he had a big year that year, and that was his rookie year. So it's always sad when you lose somebody. That's a second wide receiver in the year that we've lost to a car accident. Michael Jackson, former Browns receiver, was lost in a car accident earlier this year too. So I think that was a motorcycle accident. So yeah, gone too soon, but not forgotten for sure. And rest in peace. And we feel for you out there, Patriot Nation. So, moving on. Carolina at the Jets. Upset pick of the no. Carolina's gonna win big.
It's funny. It's funny you say that because I think the Jets are going to keep this one close for a majority of the game. If they can get a running game going with between either Powell or McGuire, I think they can make it a game. But if the Panthers run defense shows up and Kuechly is all over those two running backs, like we know he can be, it's going to be a long, long offensive day for New York. But I'm taking the Panthers in this game. Dude, I thought it was funny that you would say upset.
Yeah, no, it's not going to happen. I think McCaffrey's going to have his first 100-yard game rushing, by the way. Just FYI. Now, this next game is definitely going to be my upset pick because apparently somebody out there thought I said the Bears' defense was better than the Vikings. So I'm picking the Bears. And by picking the Bears, I mean I'm picking the Bears to lose badly to the Philadelphia Eagles. This one could be 31-10, 31-3. Philly's got everything rolling right now. The Bears' D is good, but they're good. They're not great, and they're not good enough to slow down the Philadelphia Eagles. I think this is going to be like the 49er game. It might be close after one, maybe even going in halftime. You're like, oh, it's only a 10-point game. But they'll pull away and win it. I got Philly winning at home pretty handily.
All right, listen, I'm going to go a little bit extra with this game. Think more 45-13, and I'll tell you why. The Bears do not have Leonard Floyd. He is out probably, if not the last 2 weeks of the season, for the rest of the season with an injured MCL and PCL. He avoided ACL injury, which is good, but they still might have to go in there and repair what's messed up with his knee with the MCL, PCL. Danny Trevathan doesn't look like he's going to play. Look at this as a revenge game that Alshon Jeffrey circled on his calendar the moment that he signed with Philadelphia, and he signed a 1-year deal with Philly for roughly around what the franchise price tag was for a wide receiver, which is around $14 million, $14.1 million. That's what he signed with the Eagles. And I thought to myself at the time, well, why didn't you just franchise tag him if he's going to sign for the same amount?
Yeah.
So he also had a multi-year deal with a little bit less money thrown toward him by the Vikings. I'm curious what that Vikings team will look like with him on that team, as they would have probably pushed Adam Thielen out to a number 3 role or coming off the bench role. I'm sure they're glad that they didn't do that now with the way they're being able to play. But look at this as a revenge game. I think you're going to see Wentz throw the ball religiously to Alshon Jeffrey. He'll have over 100 yards receiving, probably 2 touchdowns in this game. But the Bears do not have the offensive firepower to keep up with the Eagles, especially this year. This Eagles team is on a roll. You're going to see constant pressure and consistent pressure from the Eagles' defense on Trubisky. I wouldn't be surprised if they pulled the Jacksonville and had 10 sacks or so. I really don't want to watch this game at all. So the Eagles are going to win this one big.
Okay. Well, without further ado, we're going to go ahead and do the Rams game. I'm going to start with this one. The Rams have 3 fundamental problems on their hands this week. They don't have a defense that's been very good at stopping the run this year. They're averaging, giving up, I believe it's an average of just over 100 yards a game, or just under 100 yards a game, but it's definitely up in the 90s, which doesn't bode well when you're bringing in the best running team in football. Eric, while I'm talking, go ahead and look those statistics up for me. I want to know where the Rams are at.
As far as running the ball or defense?
Yards per game given up on the ground. That's fundamental problem number one, is their inability to stop the run consistently this year. Fundamental problem number two is the loss of Robert Woods. While that's going to open up Cooper Kupp and the tight ends, it's also going to hurt because the guy Goff goes to in a pinch is gone. That's going to affect him. I'm worried about the fact that Goff has thrown 4 picks this year. That's it, which is great. But I believe 3 of them have been at home, if not all 4. Fundamental problem number 3 is Robert Quinn. The dude, it should be on the back of a milk box because he's MIA. Like, we have no idea where Robert Quinn is. I think Pennywise nabbed him or something because he's gone. I don't know what his deal is this year. What I've seen from Robert Quinn, and this was a guy that I thought was going to be a bust when the Rams drafted him. And Eric, you remember how pissed I was. We got this guy from North Carolina who had a rape conviction or something like that on his record. But Quinn came in the league. He stayed out of trouble. He had a couple of really good years, but he's fallen. And the guy's injury prone and then goes missing. And forgive me for the record. For those of you that are listening to this right now that are blowing this up, listen to me. I think it was a rape conviction. It might have just been assault, physical assault, sexual assault. It might not have gone to that degree. I just remember that there was some legal trouble with him coming out of the draft. So, that basically means for the Rams, you've got to lean on Connor Barwin, Aaron Donald, and Brockers. So they have 3 guys that are capable of getting pressure, and they have 1 guy that just he's missing. So that bodes a problem for the Rams because when he does rush the quarterback, he's too aggressive towards the quarterback and they run where he used to be because he has no discipline on containment. And when he does try to stop the run, he's so light that he's dominated by every single tackle in the game, getting him off the ball. Rarely is he making plays, stopping the run behind the line of scrimmage. It's either at the line of scrimmage or downfield. So I look at these 3 fundamental problems and I say to myself, I don't know where the Rams get the win here. Because while I do think it's going to be a good game, and I think the Rams are going to score a lot of points, I don't think they're going to be able to stop New Orleans. And if they do stop the run, they don't have the DBs to stop the pass. They certainly don't have the linebackers outside of Alec Ogletree that I think can cover the Saints wide receivers or backs out of the backfield, which bodes and will prove to be a big problem. I'm picking New Orleans to win this game. It could be 42-21, New Orleans, or it could be 42-35. It's just going to depend on what the Rams do with Gurley. For me, this is a big game to see how do they bounce back emotionally from a tough loss. How does McVay fix what seems to be a very evident problem going into this game? And more importantly, how do they scheme against this team at home? Now, the Saints are beatable. I'm not going to sit here and be surprised if the Rams win. In order for the Rams to win, they have to do 3 things. It's always 3 things. Because in football, you have 3 phases of the game, and it will come down to 3 phases at one point. Number 1, thing that the Rams have to do is Hecker has to do a better job at putting teams inside the 20. Now, he's having, granted, compared to last year, it's a down year. But when balls used to bounce towards the goal line, now they're bouncing away from the 20-yard line. He needs to get the Saints pinned in deep, and the Rams need to keep up their good special teams play. Defensively, they have to keep the Saints' running game in check in short yardage situations, because the Saints will run the ball in short yardage. And if they can stop them, they'll force New Orleans to punt. Offensively, it's got to be the Todd Gurley show. It's got to be the Todd Gurley show, and Goff has to continue to do what Goff has done all year long, and I have no doubt he will, and that's be efficient on third down. So I look at this game, and I say, sure, the Rams can win, but I don't believe that the Rams are going to be able to do those three things consistently enough to pick up the win. I got New Orleans. What's the Rams rushing totals per game for the year?
Okay, so the Rams in total have given up 1,233 yards so far on the season, which comes out to 4.5 yards per attempt. On the yards per game, they have given up 123.3 yards, and they're also tied for third in the most rushing touchdowns given up.
Yeah.
Listen, this game does not bode well against the Rams' run defense.
No.
When you have Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara in the backfield for the Saints, and Ingram has been going over 100 yards consistently for the last few weeks. Kamara's been getting close to there. He also catches a lot of balls out of the backfield. Drew Brees is not the one person that you need to worry about in this game, as you would have had to worry about in years past, where he would throw the ball 40 times for 550 yards. Okay? This team is legit. They're a team that has figured out a way to win no matter where they play. They did it against Carolina in a tough environment in a division game earlier in the year to get their first win, and they haven't lost since. So now they're going to go to LA, where the Rams are tough, but they're going to be a little bit more one-dimensional. So for that, obviously they're going to need to lean on Gurley. You can run on the Saints.
Yeah.
Okay? New Orleans is giving up 115 yards per game on the ground. So if you can get Gurley those 15 to 20 carries and he can get over 100 yards, you're going to take a lot of pressure off of Wentz. Wentz. You're going to take a lot of pressure off Goff. You're going to take a lot of pressure off the offense. Because here's why. Without Robert Woods, because he's out for a few weeks with that shoulder injury, Marshawn Lattimore, their top cornerback, is going to be on Sammy Watkins. Now, I would definitely force feed Sammy Watkins to try to loosen up that defense a little bit. Hey, Sammy, let's get you open. Let's get you the ball. Let's find ways for us to utilize you in the open field. So while they're doing that, Cooper Kupp's going to be running crazy routes up the middle, slants, what have you. And so that's going to open up the passing game to go to Higbee. Hey, you have 3rd and 6. Higbee goes 7 yards. I'll hit you right there. Okay, on a curl. Just get behind the linebackers and turn around, and I'm going to get you. Okay. So the Rams just have to make sure that they can't turn the ball over, because if you turn the ball over in your own territory against the Saints defense, they will strike and strike quick.
Yeah.
Drew Brees, the last few weeks, has been susceptible to the early interception. Okay? He had 2 interceptions in the first quarter in Green Bay. He had an interception against Washington last week. The Rams need to capitalize on that early miscue by the Saints. And that's not to take anything away from their running backs either. Remember, Mark Ingram fumbled twice against the Bears.
Yeah.
Okay? So they are prone to the turnover. If you can win the turnover battle and score on those turnovers, because points off turnovers is huge in this game, the Rams have a legit shot.
Yeah,
I am taking the Saints because of their running offense. Because they're going to be able to control the clock. They're going to be able to control the line of scrimmage. Now, for the Saints to completely fold under pressure, I would be surprised, and this would be because Aaron Donald is wreaking havoc on that offensive line.
Right.
But I think with Max Unger anchoring that offensive line for the Saints, I think you're going to see a lot of pushback from that Saints offensive line into the Rams linebackers and secondary, and you're going to see Kamara and Ingram run with ease at times in this game. So that's why I'm picking the Saints, because of their running backs.
I'm going to tell you right now, the Rams are going to play this game angry. Okay, the Rams are pissed off. And Aaron Donald, when he's mad, is unblockable. Max Unger isn't going to push Aaron Donald into anyone. That is going to be a fun matchup to watch. You'll know early if the Rams are going to win this game because Gurley will be running the ball effectively, and the Rams will be utilizing the West Coast style passing game on third downs where they'll get they need 7, they'll get 8. They need 6, they'll get 8. They'll need 8, they'll get 10. And then if the Rams can force the Saints into passing downs, whether that be via the penalty because they held on a big run or a clip or a chop block because the Rams defense is all over the place, the Saints are going to be in trouble. We'll know early if the Rams are going to be in this to win it or if the Rams are going to be peeing down the side of their leg. I don't think they're going to pee down the side of their leg. I won't be surprised if the final score to this game is 38-30 New Orleans, only because Drew Brees gets hot at the end of the game, much like he did against Washington. But I do think the Saints will find success enough through the ground game. But I'll tell you, if the Rams win this game, Eric, they're going to win this game 30-27, 30-27, 30-24. Those Ram fans out there in the Ramily that want to see Jared Goff orchestrate that game-winning drive, this is the defense he can do it against. Okay? And this is a big game. So I think the Rams are going to come out hard. I think they're going to come out ready to play. And I think there's going to be telltale signs in this game. Look, if the Rams get a special teams touchdown, if they capitalize off the turnovers that they get, if they seize their opportunities and Aaron Donald plays mad and they execute the West Coast offense, the Rams could win this game no problem. And I'm not saying blowout, but I'm saying they could get a lead and never relinquish it. So I'm by no means or stretch of the imagination, I think you back me up on this, Eric. We're not saying this game's going to be a whitewash for New Orleans.
Right, not at all.
But it's going to be a tough hurdle. And fortunately for the Rams,
I can see actually where it could be, New Orleans blowing out the Rams, but because this game is not being played in New Orleans, that's why I'm not taking the Saints in a blowout. Yeah.
Well, and I just think the Rams are going to be playing too mad. And I think that matters. They got humiliated and humbled by the Vikings. So we'll see what happens this week. I'm going with New Orleans, not because I don't have faith in the Rams, but all-time series against New Orleans, they're 40-33. They own this series.
Last thing I want to add to this game as well. I think that this game should have been flexed into Sunday night primetime.
No kidding.
This is one of the better matchups. The Sunday night primetime game is a complete joke. And I'm not saying that because, because Green Bay, the Sunday night game is Green Bay and Pittsburgh, and we're going to get to this game. It would be a perfect primetime game if Aaron Rodgers was playing. He's not playing. They should have flexed this game out as soon as Rodgers was ruled out for 6 to 8 weeks or however long he's been ruled out. This game should have overtaken it. I haven't seen a flex game yet this year to where they're like, oh yeah, we're going to flex this game, blah, 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 blah. But this game should have gone into the Sunday night slot, and Green Bay Pittsburgh should have moved to the 3:25 Central Time slot on whatever network they wanted to put it on, and Fox or CBS or whoever.
Eric, they're not going to do that. This is 2 of the go-to 6s. As long as one go-to 6 team.
I mean, listen, I get it, but without Aaron Rodgers, Green Bay's nothing.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. The network and those people love the Packers, even if, frickin' Bullwinkle is the quarterback for Green Bay. They're going to fall in love with Green Bay and keep them in that slot That's just the way it goes.
If Bullwinkle was the quarterback, he'd have to wear orange because it is hunting season up there, and he wouldn't survive.
No kidding.
Wouldn't survive 10 yards.
Look, I'm going to call it right now. I don't think the Rams-Eagles game gets flexed. Because one of the go-to sixes is sitting in that spot. I will be shocked if they flex it.
Like I said, I just think it's a joke that a Green Bay team who just got shut out at home by the Ravens is playing Sunday night against Pittsburgh, where the Steelers are going to eat them alive.
Oh, there's no question.
I would rather see a 99% healthy two teams, and I say that because Woods is going to be out of this game. But I would rather see those two teams on Sunday night rather than Green Bay Pittsburgh. No, and I know, I know you're going to say, oh, well, you like Pittsburgh, and it bodes well for you. It don't matter, okay? Because the two of the four best teams in the NFC playing not in prime time is a joke right now.
Well, the Rams and Vikings should have been flexed last week. Look at the game we got stuck with last week. I don't even have the schedule. Who was it? Who was the Thursday night game last week? The Patriots and no. Who was it?
The Sunday night game.
Philly and Dallas.
Philly and Dallas.
Yeah. That game? Really? Over the Vikings and Rams. Okay.
Well, they were both pretty much one-sided, so you could lose.
That's true. They were both blowouts. It wouldn't have mattered, but whatever. Anyway, yeah, I just don't think the Rams are going to get on prime time at all because the network doesn't like them. Because apparently the NFL still thinks the Rams are owned by Georgia Frontier, and they never liked the fact that the Rams had a female owner. And I'm convinced that's why they railroaded the Rams right out of the league as much as they could every chance they got. They had to show the greatest show on turf because it was the greatest show on turf. But
well, it's not like she was the only female owner in the NFL, bro.
Yes, she was.
Virginia McCaskey, thank you very much.
Dude, really?
Come on.
It's not the same thing. She was the spouse of the dude. Remember? She didn't outright own them, did she?
Her family owned them, yes.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Georgia was the only female owner, at least the first one. Whatever. It doesn't matter. I'm not going to discredit her. That's a valid point. But it just seems like they always had it out for the Rams for one reason or another. But listen, I want to start a trend here. But I'm not going to do it this week because the Rams only scored 7 points. But I've got a name other than the greatest show on surf that seems to be catching waves. Did you like that? You like how I did that? Catching wave? Okay. Anyway, I got a nickname for the Rams offense, but we'll get to that when they actually score more than 7 points. Maybe this week. We'll see. Potential for an upset for the Ram game. Eric, give me a scale from 1 to 10, the likelihood.
For the Rams to win?
Yeah.
Actually, I put it at 50-50.
That's where I'm at. That's exactly where I'm at. Certain things break their way. They have a very good chance of winning. They're a good team. But the likelihood of those things breaking are up in the air. What isn't up in the air is Seattle at San Francisco. At this point, the Seahawks could take the field with Whitehurst and still find a way to win. Garoppolo is not starting against Seattle. I think that's a big mistake. You're paying. If this is going to be your franchise quarterback, find out what he can do in your system now. I don't know what they're waiting for, but Beathard is starting, so I'm picking Seattle by 35.
This game was close when it was in Seattle between these two teams. I'm not sure what San Francisco's thinking about Garoppolo, but I actually think this is going to end up still being a close game. Not like 35, but I think more like 10 to 14. But I'm taking Seattle. I just think they have more talent, which is true. I'm not fabricating anything there, but I don't see us still beat the Giants 2 weeks ago, and they lost last week. But momentum can only take you so far, and that momentum stops against Seattle here.
Yeah. No, look, it could be close, but I just think Russell Wilson's going to have a field day. And that offense is starting to click at the wrong time. And that bodes poorly because that means, based on our picks, the Rams will be in second place going into next week. But we'll get to how that's not going to affect the Rams here in a minute. Jacksonville at Arizona. The Jaguars all day, every day. Although it is interesting that Blaine Gabbert goes against his former mates. I think he's going to have a good game. And by good game, I mean efficient. But again, he'll make a mistake that will be costly, and his team will lose by 10. I'm picking Jacksonville.
Upset pick of the week, baby. Give me the Cardinals.
Are you kidding me?
No.
I didn't think so.
I kind of want to pick them because I think Gabbert's ticked off playing with a chip on his shoulder, especially when he sees Jacksonville on the schedule. But I think Jacksonville's defense is going to be too much for Gabbert, actually. It's going to be hard for Peterson to run. It's going to be hard for whoever lines up across the way from Jalen Ramsey, and that's most likely going to be Larry Fitzgerald. As far as Jacksonville goes, Blake Bortles could do his best Jekyll and Hyde impersonation. He could legitimately, blow up and throw three, four picks. So I'm curious to see who Patrick Peterson is going to come in this game. Ellen Hearns should be back, so he's either going to be on him or Marquise Lee. But I think it's going to be a close game more than you think. It's going to be low scoring, but I think Jacksonville pulls it out in the end.
Well, here's a little fun fact. When Tyrann Mathieu has 2 picks in a game, has a pick in a game, the Cardinals in those games are 12-2. If Tyrann Mathieu gets a pick, the Honey Badger, and he's getting better each week, that's one of those guys, Eric, we were talking about that I think will be a free agent because the Cardinals right now would have to pay him $26 million on next year's salary. And he has not played like a $26 million corner. So he's going to end up being on the free agent market because I think the Cardinals are going to cut him before the March 1st deadline when that money is due. But I do think if he gets a pick in this game, the Cardinals will win it because he seems to make that lethal interception that just kills the team. So the other team. I don't see it happening, though, this week. But I'm telling you, if the Cardinals win, you can go right back to that Tyrann Mathieu pick. That inevitably will happen in this game if the Cardinals win. But I agree. I'm picking Jacksonville. I think it's going to be like a 27-17 game. I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I think the Cardinals will be driving, and they'll be on the verge of either tying it or taking the lead, and they'll, fumble, interception, something will happen, and Jacksonville will bleed the clock up the field and win it with a touchdown and put the game away. It's going to be that kind of game, I feel. But, we'll see. Denver at Oakland. This is the Fired Coordinator Bowl. I'm going the Raiders. I think the Broncos are in complete disarray. I think Paxton Lynch is going to get eaten alive by Mac. And I think Amari Cooper is actually going to have a big game. And I think Derek Carr is going to throw for over 350 yards. And it's going to be the no-fly what? Not no-fly zone. It's going to be the please fly the friendly skies zone. Because I think Denver's defense has been the biggest problem because they're on the field so much. It's not their fault, but like the Rams last year, you're on the field long enough, you're going to give up a big play. I'm picking Oakland.
Give me Oakland as well. I like them at home in this game. With Denver playing musical quarterback chairs yet again, starting Paxton Lynch and having Simeon be the backup, and then Osweiler not even suiting up for this game. Lynch is one in his career to start dating back to early when he started the season in 2016, but really hasn't taken a step since then. I think it's going to be hard for Oakland to pass the ball at will against that Denver defense. I see like a 23-16 type of game, 23-13 type of game, but I think you're going to see a big game from Derek Carr to Jared Cook. Denver stinks against opposing linebackers. So obviously whoever Talib covers, probably Crabtree. Unsure though because he could line up on either side. But I do like Oakland in this game, and I think they're going to give their fans something to cheer about. I think you're also going to see a semi-decent game from Marshawn Lynch as well. If he's able to run through some of those gaps in that Denver defense, so that's going to open up a lot of passing lanes for Derek Carr.
Yeah. Green Bay at Pittsburgh. Who cares? Who cares? Pittsburgh, it's going to be over by the second quarter. Wake me up when it's over. Steelers 40, Packers 7.
You know, I'm trying to look up right now if the Packers have ever been shut out back-to-back games. And last week when they got shut out by the Ravens, it was the first time in 11 years, almost to the day, that they were shut out. And I could see it happening again, actually, with the Steelers blanking the Packers. Again, the Steelers' defense is going to be too much for Brett Hundley. Give me Pittsburgh in a rout all day.
Yeah, it's not even going to be close. All right, that brings us to the Monday night game. Look, I think Baltimore's defense is woken up, and they get the benefit of playing two very weak offenses in consecutive weeks. I got Baltimore winning this game 27-6. Not that far off from their victory and their score last week. I do think Houston will get into field goal range a couple of times because of Hopkins, but I got Baltimore winning this thing pretty handily, 27-6.
Yeah, give me the Ravens in this game, 27-9, actually.
That's funny. You know what's funny is we were almost identical on the score, but we picked the exact same teams. The exact same teams.
All this week?
Every single game, we're identical.
Yeah. Well, you know we'll go like 5-11 now, right?
Either that or I'll have my first really good week in a long time because I'm agreeing with you on so many of them. That's crazy. Listen, I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about these four teams. I went through the schedule, and, you know, I said on my show that I got Atlanta and Minnesota as the wild card team, and Carolina and Seattle. I'm sorry. The Redskins. I had the Vikings winning the division. I had the Falcons and Redskins making the playoffs over Carolina and Seattle. But I don't know. I do think. So let me go through the schedule, and you tell me what you think of this, okay? I'll get to Minnesota in a minute. Minnesota, Detroit, Eric. Minnesota win the division?
Yes.
Are the Lions out then?
No, because they're 6-4. They would be tied with the Falcons and the Seahawks. You know, I think with Detroit, you know, Detroit gets Green Bay again. They get the Bears again. Seattle, I can't trust their defense. So I think somehow the Lions sneak in.
Well, here's the deal. Really quick, here's the deal. I'm looking at their schedule. They've got Minnesota and at Baltimore. Then after that, it's at Tampa, Chicago, at Cincinnati, and Green Bay. I think that Bengal game will be tougher than people think. I could see them going 9-7. Let's get to the Lions in a minute. This is what I want to look at. I'm looking at the Falcons' schedule first, okay? I'm going to go left to right. I'm doing this because I'm changing something here. I want to know which two teams are going to make the playoffs because I've actually got Carolina in, and I'll tell you why. Looking at the schedule, you've got Atlanta home against Tampa Bay. Then they're home against Minnesota. Then they're home against New Orleans. I got them going 2-1 in that stretch. I actually think they're going to beat the Saints at home. And then beat Tampa Bay, but probably lose to Minnesota. Then they go to Tampa, to New Orleans, and home against Carolina. I think they're going to beat Tampa, lose to New Orleans, and beat Carolina. I got them going 10-6. Do you agree with that?
Win, lose.
Okay, really quick, one more time. Win,
So
lose.
they beat the Saints and the Panthers are all better than the Falcons.
Okay, so you got them going 8-8. Now that brings me to Seattle. Originally I had Seattle at 9-7, but then I realized, oops, no, and here's why. At San Francisco, Seattle wins. Home against Philly, Eagles win that game. Then they go to Jacksonville. They lost at Tennessee when they had all their guns. I don't see them beating Jacksonville without their guns. Then they're home against LA. I actually think the Rams are going to win that game. But then they're at Dallas, but Ezekiel Elliott returns. So I'm actually picking Dallas to win that game. And then they end the season against Arizona. So I got them bookending these last 6 games with W's and losing in between. I got them actually going 8-8. Now, what do you got?
Because they host the Eagles at home, and I'm not saying they're going to beat the Eagles when I say this, but I am really curious on how that crowd is going to play in as a factor. Because as we saw with Atlanta, false start after false start. Now, they only had 3 or 4, but it's when those happen that can really derail your team. I still think the Eagles will have too much firepower, that the Seahawks are still searching for any type of run game. So my prediction is win, lose, win.
So same as me.
They don't want a 4-game losing streak.
Yeah. So me and you agree on that 8-8. So that essentially then, Eric, eliminates Atlanta and Seattle from the equation. Now, I'm going to get to Detroit here. I want to do Detroit next. Let me get their schedule and what I think they're going to do first. In the meantime, you go ahead and touch on Detroit while I'm writing this up.
Okay, Detroit. They're home against the Vikings on Thanksgiving, at the Ravens, at the Buccaneers, home versus the Bears, at the Bengals versus the Packers. The real big question mark right now is if Aaron Rodgers will be back for that New Year's Eve game, Week 17. So I'm assuming right now that he's not. Okay? And of course, when we get to our picks, when that time comes, I'm free to change my pick. But here's how I have Detroit going. Lose, win.
So you got them going 11-5.
I do.
Okay. Because, see, I look at it this way, all right?
Listen, 11-5 or 10-6.
Okay.
And the only game that's really 50-50 for me right now is Baltimore.
Okay.
Because if Baltimore's playing like the way we know they're capable of, then the Ravens will beat Detroit because Detroit's not at home. Detroit has to go on a road for that game.
I don't think Aaron Rodgers will be back in Week 17. There's no reason his season and their season will be done. They're going to be a 6-win team, and you're not going to bring the guy in to go 7-9. Okay, I agree he's out. I've got lose, win, lose at Cincinnati, win. And here's why I say lose to Cincinnati. It's a one-man team in Detroit. They're going on the road, and I think Cincinnati might actually be flirting with the 6th seed by then. And if they are, plus I love Andy Dalton. You know I love Andy Dalton. I think Andy Dalton is an underrated quarterback, and against good defenses, he can play well enough to keep his team in the game. I could see them easily going 9-7. Now, like you, I could see that. That's the game I'm really 50-50 on. I could see them beating Cincinnati as well and going 10-6. If they do go 10-6, it creates an interesting scenario I'm going to get to in a minute. Now, I was looking at Carolina, and unfortunately, looking at Carolina, I got at the Jets as a win, at New Orleans as a loss, home against Minnesota as a win, home against Green Bay as a win, home against Tampa Bay as a win, and then at Atlanta as a loss. And under that formula, I have them going 11-5. What do you got them going as?
They beat the Jets. They lose to the Saints. They lose to the Vikings. They beat the Packers. They beat the Buccaneers. And they lose to the Falcons. So 3-3 in the last 6 games.
So you got them going
10-6.
10-6. Okay. Interesting. Okay. That makes it.
I want you to do one more thing, and I know this is going to the opposite conference, but I want you to go to the Bengals schedule. You said that they're going to flirt with the number 6 seed.
Let me see.
I'd like to ask you where they're going to get extra wins.
Okay, I'll tell you. So, Pittsburgh Monday night's a loss. Chicago's a win. Minnesota's a loss. Detroit and Baltimore could be wins.
Okay, so that only puts them at 8 and 8 if they win those 4 games.
Yeah, I think the 6th seed is going to be 8 and 8 or 9 and 7 in the AFC.
Okay, because at best I have them going 7 and 9.
Okay, well, we disagree on that one. That's fine. Don't be surprised if 7 and 9 makes the playoffs in the AFC this year. But we'll get to that in a minute. Washington's interesting to me. Washington's home against the Giants on Thanksgiving. They're at Dallas, at the Chargers, home against Arizona and Denver, and at New York. I could easily see them going 10 and 6.
You think they can win the next 6 games?
I do. All of those games are winnable. Now, the only one on there that I'm remotely concerned about is the Chargers. Yeah.
Yep. I knew you were going to say that.
That's the only one on the schedule I'm looking at going, that could be an out. But the rest of them, I mean, that's win city right there, man.
Well, they're definitely going to beat the Cardinals because they're going to go 4-0 against the NFC West.
Right. Right.
I could easily see them splitting against the Giants. I don't know why. I don't know how. But it's a division game. Anything happens. And if they do split, it's because of the Redskins lose Week 17. I think that I think just Denver's defense alone will give Washington fits. And the Cowboys are always tough for them to beat in Dallas. But I see where you're going with it, and they could run off 6 straight wins. They really need Pirine to go off and basically be their savior the rest of the way.
Well, here's the thing, E. The thing for me is their defense is getting healthier by the week. They expect their corner, I forget his name, to be back in the week of the Chargers. And by Denver, they expect everyone but their D tackle that broke his foot to be healthy.
Well, remember, Mason Foster's out for the year.
Yeah, but he's been out for a while. Yeah, no, I know that. But the guy that replaced him got injured, and he was doing really well. So he's supposed to be back by Arizona. And by Denver, I forget the other corner's name, their nickel corner, he's supposed to be back. And they already got D'Angelo Hall back. So what do you think they do then? It doesn't sound like you agree, but what record do you give the Redskins?
They're 4 and 6 right now. I swear, if they were 6 and 4, I'd definitely give you the benefit of the doubt as far as going forward to the last 6 games. I think that the road games trip them up. At least 2 of the 3 road games, and that's the Cowboys and Chargers. They've already lost to the Cowboys once by 2 scores. Okay, I know Elliott was there, and I know it was a rainstorm that was basically coming down throughout the whole game. 8, 9, and 7.
Okay. 8. All right. So let's assume that you're right about Detroit, that I'm right about Atlanta, that you're right about Carolina, and that I'm right about Washington. You'd have 4 teams at 10 and 6. I would think due to tiebreakers, Atlanta would be in over Carolina. Would you agree?
Well, no, because Atlanta would have to have a 1-game better record than Carolina because Carolina's already beaten Atlanta.
Well, they play Carolina week 17, though.
Right.
So if they beat them...
Unless Carolina's already up 1 game in the standings, and Atlanta beats Carolina to tie the same win-loss record, then it's going to come down to, I believe, division record And right now,
Well,
okay.
Don't do right now. If it unfolds the way we just said, I've got them splitting with New Orleans and sweeping Tampa Bay and splitting with Carolina. Yeah, the Falcons are in because the Saints Carolina would have lost to New Orleans twice and Atlanta once. So that's 3 losses in the division, while the Falcons only had 2.
Yeah, but I got them beating the Falcons in Week 17.
No.
I think the Panthers get in. I mean, 7-3, and the Panthers have lost quite a bit, and that includes Benjamin. And even Newton wasn't healthy the first part of the year, and they're starting to really come up. I just think it's going to be hard for Carolina to miss the playoffs.
So then Washington.
I think it's the Falcons that miss the playoffs.
Well, let me ask you then: Washington, Atlanta, Detroit. Who gets the final seed? If they're all 10-6.
I'm taking my time looking at this because unfortunately, Washington doesn't play the Lions
or Atlanta. So it'd have to come down to like conference record or something.
Yeah, it's going to have to come down to conference record. Currently, and I'm just using currently as a base, the Redskins are 3-5, the Lions are 5-3, and the Falcons are 5-1. So if Falcons can keep it up, they would get in via the conference tiebreaker.
Yeah. It's interesting though. What we're looking at potentially is because right now, as it breaks down, Eric, you've got Carolina and Detroit in. I've got Carolina and I guess it would be the Falcons. I got Carolina and the Falcons in, which would be interesting. But get to the Vikings really quick. They're 8-2. At Detroit, we said win. Now you said against Atlanta, do you give them a victory over the Falcons in Atlanta, or do you give them no?
Okay.
Because they're not a comeback team. That's the thing for me. If Atlanta gets on them early like they do everyone, I don't think Case Keenum.
Like I said, Minnesota has a tough 3-game stretch here. But I said they start out with a win at Detroit. So I actually honestly think that they go 1-2, but finish up 3-0 in their last 3 games.
It's so funny that you said that. It's exactly what I have them doing. I have them going 12-4. That's funny. It's identical. Bottom line is the NFC looks like they're a dominant division, a conference this year. And I think it's going to be fun. And I look at it and go, look, I think we can agree, even if the Rams stumble and go 9-7, they only beat Arizona and Arizona and San Francisco down the stretch. And let's say they get swept by Seattle. There's potential there for Seattle to win the division. But I don't think the Rams, after playing as well as they did against Seattle at home, as poorly as they did and damn near win the game, I don't see them getting swept by Seattle this year. And I actually do think the Rams are going to pull a win somewhere in the next 4 weeks, other than Arizona. So when I look at the Rams' final 6 games, San Francisco and Arizona are clear wins. So now you look at the remaining 3 opponents other than those 2. You got New Orleans, you got Philly, you got Seattle, Tennessee. So I think the Rams are going to beat Tennessee. So that's at the very least going to give them 9 wins. I think they're capable of winning one of these 3 games to end up 10-6, 11-5.
If the Lions beat the Vikings on Thanksgiving, not only do the Lions hold the tiebreaker over the Vikings as they beat them twice, but they'd be a game out of first place. And with the Vikings possibly losing the next 2 games on the road and Detroit even winning one of the next 2 games after Thanksgiving, the Lions should be in first place.
Isn't that crazy? They could both end up 12-4. If they beat the Vikings, they could both end up 12-4. Crazy.
Well, and part of that is, Detroit doesn't have to go to Green Bay either at the end of the year, like they're typically prone to, because the schedule forces them to. Green Bay comes to Detroit, and if Rodgers isn't playing, because he loves to feast on Detroit secondary. But I just somebody with a 10-6 record may be left out. And that's because there's not going to be a division winner at 7-9 that gets in like a few years ago that happened with Seattle or the Saints or whoever it was.
Yeah.
But there's gonna be a lot of teams that are going to be disappointed come playoff time. That win 9 or 10 games.
Well, it was Carolina. Listen, the last thing that I want to do here is I want to go into the Rams again. And I want to go into their schedule since we did it for all the other teams. So looking at the Rams, they're home against New Orleans, and they're at Arizona, and they're home against Philly, and then at Seattle, at Tennessee, home against San Fran. We both got them losing to New Orleans. At Arizona, I think is going to be a win. Home against Philly. Home against Philly. Look, the Eagles' offensive line is vulnerable. And the Rams' defensive front three, and I say three because I'm eliminating Robert Quinn for the moment, I think can get to the quarterback. That could cause fits. But the difference for me is Ajayi, so I still give Philly the win. At Seattle, without Richard Sherman, almost did it again. Without Richard Sherman and Cam Chancellor, and now Dwight Freeney is gone. They just cut him loose. I don't see Seattle beating the Rams in Seattle. I think the Rams are going to shut their offense down, and I actually could see that being a 24-7, 24-10 kind of game. At Tennessee, I think the Rams go 4-0 against the AFC South. I think they can beat Tennessee. I know Tennessee can run the ball, but I think the Rams, look, they stopped Fournette in that running game. I think they can handle Tennessee. And then home against San Francisco, I got the Rams going 11-5 and easily winning the division.
Yeah, I could easily see the Rams for the next 6 games going lose, win, lose, win, lose, win to make it 7-6. I think they finish 10-6 or 11-5. It's just a matter of whether or not they can beat the Titans. I think if they can beat the Titans, they should be able to lock up the. Well, I don't think they get a 2 seed because they would have to win 2 games. I think that they're not supposed to win, like the Saints and the Eagles.
Yeah, they would have to beat.
But they're definitely. But to me, I can see them easily hosting a first round game. Because I don't see them being a wild card. Is what I'm trying to say.
You see the Rams being a wild card, you mean?
I don't see the Rams.
Well, a wild card division winner.
Well, yeah, they'll be the 3rd or 4th seed.
Yeah, they'll be in the wild card game just as the home team. I agree. I mean, look, if the Rams could completely throw a monkey wrench in all of this. If they beat New Orleans and Philly at home, and let's say stumble against Seattle unthinkably on the road, it's not going to matter because at that point the Rams would be 12-4. They win the rest of their games, they're 13-3. I think for sure they would be a 2 seed because they get the tiebreaker over New Orleans. But does that happen? Probably not. Now, if the Rams go 13-3 with wins at home against New Orleans and Philly, bring on the Vikings in the NFC Championship game. I want to see that rematch because I don't think it's going to be 24-7. But, man, that's asking a lot. That's asking for a very young team to make monumental leaps and bounds over the next 4 weeks. And I don't see that happening. I could see him stealing one. Maybe New Orleans, maybe Philadelphia. I could easily see him ending up 11-5, 12-4 because they stumble against, say, Seattle or Tennessee. But that's asking a lot. That's asking a lot to go 13-3. All right. Well, look, the show is an hour and 15. I'm fine with it. We broke down the Thanksgiving Day games. I think it's going to be a great week of football. I'm hoping, like heck, me and Eric are wrong on the Ram game. But If not, I'm just hoping it's a good game, and I think it will be. I don't think the Saints will win by 21, although I think they're capable of it. I don't think they're going to. And just for the record out there, guys, I'm not a homer. If you want somebody that's going to tell you the Rams are going to win the Super Bowl, you got to go watch someone else. The Rams will get there. And trust me, when I say the Rams are going to go to the Super Bowl, they go to the Super Bowl. I've only said it twice in my life. 99 in I believe it was week 9, after the Rams went 6-2, I told everyone the Rams are going to the Super Bowl. And they thought I was kidding. And I said it again right after Oz Hakeem fumbled the football against the New Orleans Saints in the wild card game in 2000. When the Saints recovered and ran out the clock and did their celebration, my dad walked in and he was like, "I'm sorry, son." I said, "Why?" I said, "The Rams just won the Super Bowl." And he's like, "What are you talking about?" I said, "Dad, this loss is going to stick with this team all summer long. And like the Dolphins Super Bowl 7 loss or 6 loss to the Dallas Cowboys that motivated them in 72, this is going to be what motivates the Rams in 01. And I was right. They went. So I'm not somebody who sits here and says the Rams are going to the Super Bowl unless I really believe it. So please understand that. Eric, I'll let you wrap our show up. Anything you want to add or touch at the end?
I'm gonna veer off of the NFL here for a moment. As I mentioned at the end of the previous show, that I wanted to talk about Goodell's contract, but I think I'm going to go a different route here. I think we can touch on Goodell's contract in next week's episodes on a little bit on his soon-to-be confirmed contract extension. But what I want to do is I want to give a shout-out to MM Forever, and you have a great idea for Anthony and I, and I want to know your thoughts on where former Eagles head coach Chip Kelly should go, UCLA or Florida. I hear he's leaning toward UCLA, but I'd like to hear from you. This is my 2-second rant on college football on where Chip Kelly should go and coach. I think it'll be interesting to see him back in college. I think that's where he's more suited for it.
Exactly.
He made Oregon a powerhouse. He could, from what I understand, his thing isn't recruiting. So, if he wants to if he doesn't want to do that, UCLA is a job for him. If he wants to take his hand in the SEC, Florida is a job for him, but only he can decide. I hear he's leaning toward UCLA, but I'd like to hear from you and then Forever on where you think he should go and why. And Anthony, I'd like to get your thoughts on where Chip Kelly should go.
I would love for him to go to UCLA. The Bruins haven't been relevant for a long, long time since Donahue. And I loved the Donahue UCLA Bruins in the late 80s, early 90s. I think it's good for college football that Chip Kelly's back. I think he should go to the Pac-12. That's what he knows. It's what he's comfortable with. And I think it's what he's best at. And I think you could tap into the talent. Look, there's a lot of talent in Florida too. But man, you could tap into that California talent and be in the Pac-12 where you're familiar with and be in the weaker of the two divisions within the Pac-12. He's got to go to UCLA. But I'm going to throw a monkey wrench. I think the Sun Devils lose to U of A.
You took the words right out of my mouth.
I think Chip Kelly may end up in Arizona and coaching the Sun Devils.
I was just about to ask you, if you were a team that was on the brink of possibly firing a coach, and I was going to use the Sun Devils as an example of Todd Graham, if you would get it done like right after the game, hey, Todd Graham, you're fired.
Oh yeah.
Hey, Chip Kelly, let's see if you want to come to Arizona. Hey,
Dude, low key, I would have already been in conversations with Chip Kelly. Just so you know, I'd have low key already been doing it. So yeah, look, MM Forever. I'll say this: if we do college football, it's not just going to be the top 10. And yes, we will cover the teams in the top 10, but we're going to cover Division I AA. My main Black Bears are there. And there's a lot of good football games in that division, and there's a lot of fun teams, and there's a lot of talent that goes undrafted that lingers down there. Carson Wentz, North Dakota State, did get drafted. I think if we were to do a college show, it would probably run about the same amount of time. It would be a little more free in the sense that we could kind of pick whoever we wanted. I guess I would have an LA flavor or a Pac-12 flavor because me and you both graduated from a Pac-12 school. But yeah, I would definitely be interested in that. That's something me and you maybe should look into because for those of you that don't know, I'll drop this bomb. Me and Eric are actually toying with the idea of creating a network here on YouTube and collecting people like LT and having him post his shows not only on his channel but on the network show that we would have. That's where all of my posts would then go, leaving me and going there with reminders on my channel that, hey, go to this channel. I'm going to try to talk to Laura Russells and see if she wants to go in on that. That would be a fun thing to do, but and try to get a collection of some of the best sports breakdown people on YouTube and put them in to this one show, have it make a bunch of money and disperse it to everyone that's a part of that network, and then maybe go big time with it. But that's me dreaming out loud here live on YouTube. But I think it's a really good idea, Forever. We would have to find a way to get a third show in every week. But if that's something that you guys out there would be interested in seeing, me and Eric doing a college football breakdown, can you comment on this show? Because I think it would be interesting to know how much of my 940-something subscribers would be interested in that. Because I know me and Eric love college football, and we have a wealth of knowledge to offer there. So yeah, comment on that. Thanks for bringing that up, Eric. That was a great point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, that's all I've got, so go Rams!